5 Live Formula One.
Every lap matters from here on out this weekend, with a close competitive order and a championship on the line. Setting yourself up with a good grid spot for the final sprint race then might be a good start. It's nearly time for qualifying for the Qatar sprint, and guiding you through every lap under the lights in Losail is myself, Harry Benjamin. Alongside me, former McLaren mechanic Mark Priestley and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. The sun has well and truly set. The lights have come on to illuminate this just over 5.4 kilometre circuit. It proved tricky in practice, Mark, and it was first blood in the end to Oscar Piastri.
Yeah, which is exactly what he needs. He's got to rebuild confidence. You know, the championship's really coming down to the wire, and he needs nothing much short of perfection, really, to keep his championship hopes alive and to just really swing the balance within that McLaren team back in his favour. There's been so much in the hands of Lando Norris for so long. Lando wasn't far behind, less than half a tenth, so there's really nothing between them in the early part of the weekend. Let's hope from a competitive point of view that continues, but as ever, Max Verstappen wasn't very far behind either, was he?
No, he wasn't. But he wasn't without issues, was he, during that practice session, complaining about some steering problems, some shift issues as well. But it's not uncommon to hear Verstappen have a few complaints. Yeah,
I can think of many Grand Prix weekends that Max Verstappen's gone on to dominate. And if you think back to the early practice sessions in the weekend, there's been nothing but moaning and complaining. It is all feedback. It's all it's going through a process where the team are able to fine-tune the car and get it into the right window. So what really matters is how they show up for this session. And as you said, every single one from here on in absolutely matters.
But it is very much a three-way fight for the title with 2 rounds to go. Lando Norris, though, still has a sizable advantage, 24 points over Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen, who are tied on points, 366 apiece. Now, Lando Norris can't win the championship in the sprint race. However, he can win it in the Grand Prix on Sunday if he outscores Piastri and Verstappen by 2 points. Then the championship is his, but it could still very easily go to the final round next week in Abu Dhabi, at least for the storyline. I think that's what we're all hoping for, a showdown right to the checkered flag in Abu Dhabi. But the turnaround, isn't it, of this championship story? Both McLarens have been flying on and off throughout the season. They wrapped up the constructors back in Singapore, but Norris has just come storming through in comparison to Piastri's drop-off, and Verstappen is there picking away at the points consistently.
Yeah, the two McLarens, but for those two McLaren drivers, it's been a real sort of game of two halves, hasn't it? Which the early part of the season really dominated by Oscar Piastri, where he was really happy, very comfortable in the car, seemingly full of confidence, could almost not put a foot wrong, rarely ever made a mistake, and actually any of the errors, any of the things that were creeping in, costing him performance, were on the side of Lando Norris. And then it's kind of flipped almost exactly the opposite way as we close the season out. So for Lando, he's put himself in a really strong position with a great run of form. The car has been dominant all the way throughout the season, but like you say, Max Verstappen in a Red Bull that definitely didn't start the season anywhere near as strong. Red Bull have managed to drag some great points and great points hauls out of weekends when they haven't necessarily dominated, because they rarely have made mistakes. So it's been a good season for both of those two teams, for all three of those drivers that are still in contention, and the fact that it's come down to the last 2 rounds and could even go all the way to Abu Dhabi is testament to what I think has been a great championship.
Certainly is. One, as I say, that was wrapped up in terms of constructors by McLaren in Singapore. Still a battle going on for second, though, with Mercedes currently holding that fort. They've got 40 points over Red Bull, who are 13 points clear of Ferrari, who have rather fallen from grace down into 4th position. Williams look like they're going to cement 5th place in what has been a pretty remarkable year for them, with Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz scoring big points across the year. Battle still raging on for 6th place in the Constructors' Championship, that tight fight in the midfield, which is worth millions of dollars worth of prize money come the end of the year. Just 22 points separating Racing Bulls, Haas, Aston Martin and Sauber, all still in that fight, with Alpine looking like they are locked to the bottom of the field with just 22 points to their name, down in 10th and last in the Constructors. But we're a few moments away then from getting the final sprint qualifying of the year underway. If you need a little reminder as to how it works, it's just like Grand Prix qualifying but slightly adjusted. We have 3 knockout sessions, SQ1 being 12 minutes, slightly reduced, SQ2 10 minutes, and SQ3 is 8 minutes. Now, while the teams are free to use any of their available tyres in regular qualifying, in the sprint qualifying, sets of new medium tyres will be mandatory in SQ1 and SQ2, and in the final part, drivers must run soft tyres, but they don't have to be a new set. And to add to the tyre complexity, as the green light comes on at the end of the pit lane and Max Verstappen leads them out, and what is a pretty hefty queue already, there is a maximum mileage limit that's been imposed by the tyre supplier. 25 laps every set of tyres can cover, and that is carried over throughout the session and includes laps when we come to a race situation under virtual safety car. It includes laps to the grid and formation laps as well, so we're going to have to be keeping a track of that. But SQ1 then very much underway as they head out onto this track and try and search for a bit more grip than I think they had in FP1.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to explain why that 25 lap limit has been brought in, it is because Pirelli have concerns about the integrity of these tyres on this particular racetrack. It's very high speed, it's got some quite aggressive curves which the drivers all need to use to get the lap time. They've run wide on those curves and they have had damage occurring to tyres in the past at this circuit. So you can argue, well, why haven't they updated the tyres? And that is another conversation, which a lot of people are asking the same question about. But that's the solution that Pirelli have come up with, to preserve the safety of the tyre, the safety of the competitors. No tyre can do more than 25 laps. That's what we got. In terms of the circuit, absolutely right, Harry. This morning it was slippery, it was dusty. The drivers were finding it very, very difficult to push the limits. When they put the soft tyres on and did some qualifying simulations, there were a lot of drivers running wide, running off the circuit. If we get more of that in this qualifying hour, then things are going to be really interesting.
As Max Verstappen embarks on a lap on that medium tyre, arcs his way through the right-hander of turn 1, flicks to the left out through turn 2, builds up through the right-hander of 3, a short straight before he then gets to a double right-hander, turns 4 and 5. So easy to run out wide there before you pull the car back to the right-hand side, getting ready for the long left-hander of turn 6. Slight elevation change there as you head very slightly uphill towards a medium speed corner. Turn 7 loops you back on yourself, getting traction, so important as you head through the fast flicks of 8 and 9 before you then head uphill again through the left-hander of turn 10 as it starts to bend left, setting you up for a brilliant sequence of corners, really. A triple right-hander as he really kicks up the dust. That Red Bull running very low with the sparks flying from the underside of that Red Bull car as he then feeds himself through the left-hander of turn 15 down the short stretch that leads you to the final corner. Another right-hander, gravel waiting for you on the left-hand side if you run out wide to punish track limits, and that is a lap at the Losail International Circuit for Max Verstappen with a time of 1:22.258, the only time on the clock for now.
It's a really cool circuit, this. I think the drivers enjoy driving it. I think it's got some really interesting corners. That triple right-hander that you talked about is a really cool corner. A number of different lines through it. There's a lot of overtaking opportunities, and it's very, very high speed as well. So the modern era of Formula One cars, they really do come alive on a track like this. So it's got lots going for it. It's under the lights in Qatar as well now, deep into the night, under the floodlights. So everything looks good as well. It's one of those, a little bit like Abu Dhabi that we have next time around. Really does show off Formula One cars at their best.
Yeah, it certainly does. A track that was revamped a couple of years ago after Formula One's first visit here, just north of Doha, about 20 kilometres north of the capital, being welcomed back to this high-speed track with a fairly long main straight and medium to high speed corners, which McLaren team principal Andrea Stella in the build up to this weekend feels that McLaren will once again go very strongly here for the likes of Oscar Piastri, who has been lagging behind the last few rounds, hoping to come good here. Of course, took his first sprint win here back in 2023, finished second here last year in the Grand Prix. Good form around here. Can he carry that momentum through and get this championship charge back on in the dying stages of 2025?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, one of the points, just talking about the Pirelli 25 lap limit, one of the sort of knock-on effects effects of that, and I heard Zach Brown talking about this, is that one of McLaren's strengths is looking after their tyres. One of the things that they think they do better than many other teams, particularly in high temperatures, is managing the surface temperatures of those tyres over long stints in a race, and therefore looking after them, making them last a little bit longer. That sort of tool out of their armoury, that weapon from their armoury, is a little bit taken away now when there's a limit of 25 laps. They can't do a very long stint, which other teams maybe couldn't do in the same way, and therefore there may be an argument there's a bit of a level playing field from a strategic point of view, perhaps equalling out the technical abilities of some of those teams.
It's the sound of Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin, who was looking quick in practice and follows that up with third place in the early stages of SQ1, just over 2.5 tenths away though from the McLarens, headed by Lando Norris, with just over 6.5 minutes remaining. It's a 1:21.621 the benchmark time. Piastri almost 2 tenths back in second, then it's Alonso. Hadjar continuing to show good pace. Lawson's flying at the moment as well on the other Racing Bulls. Albon's up to 5th. Both Williams looked very strong in practice 1, or the one and only practice, so keep an eye on for them. Verstappen's having another go, fastest of anybody in the first sector. Bortoletto 7th ahead of Leclerc, Hulkenberg and Behrman the top 10, Tsunoda, Ocon, Sainz, Stroll, Hamilton the top 15, with still Lawson to set a lap time. He does so and puts himself up into 9th spot as we await the 2 Mercedes drivers to set their first lap times. They're on out laps at the moment. Kimi Antonelli beginning his first flyer, soon followed by George Russell. But it's Verstappen flying in the first sector. Hadjar is the quickest man in the middle sector, and Piastri has the final sector on lockdown.
Yeah, Verstappen about to cross the line now. He's had a good third sector, and yeah, that puts him top of the timesheets by just over a tenth from Lando Norris. So really the fastest of anyone in the first sector. Same in the third sector. It was that middle sector. It certainly wasn't slow by any stretch of the imagination, but their car seemingly working better around the first and last part of this lap. A little bit more struggling in the middle sector.
Keep an eye on the 2 Ferraris as well. Neither of them were particularly happy in practice just a few hours ago in terms of where we're at temperature wise. Air temperature 21.6 degrees, track temperature about 26.4 degrees, wind relatively low as well as Leclerc moves up to 7th, Hamilton only up to 14th and over a second adrift. Carlos Sainz, meanwhile, on the other Williams, backs up their pace. He's up into 6th, just behind Yuki Tsunoda. Esteban Ocon popping up into 9th. But let's see where the 2 Mercedes can play their role. Looking like they're in a bit of a run of form right now. Double podium last time out in Las Vegas. Kimi Antonelli really having a strong second half to his debut campaign in Formula 1. The best race of the season, perhaps, last time out in Las Vegas. But of course, this is only one small part of the weekend. We're qualifying for the sprint race. Less points on offer for the sprint, but for those fighting for the title and for their teams in the Constructors' Championship, every point counts. Oscar Piastri's going for another lap. He's fastest of anybody in the first sector. Kimi Antonelli heads down towards turn 1 to begin his first proper flyer. So doing a couple of warm-up laps then for Antonelli on the medium tyre. Bear in mind, they've either done little to no running on this medium tyre so far.
Yeah, exactly. So still a lot of learning to do. Norris has gone quicker than Verstappen again now. They're trading blows by just around a tenth of a second, so not a lot in it. Piastri then goes a tenth quicker than his teammate Norris, so not much separating those top 3 World Championship contenders at this early part of the weekend.
Might get a fair bit of track evolution here as well with more and more running. We have got Formula 2 here this weekend, so there is track action, but the circuit not exactly used massively throughout the course of the year. A bit of GT racing spread across the season, but when Formula 1 comes to town, certainly not much rubber. Hadjar, check for floor damage. The turn 2 exit was quite harsh, so potentially trouble there for Hadjar, who is currently in 10th at the moment. He's ahead of his teammate Lawson, who's in that elimination zone along with Hamilton, Colapinto, and currently the 2 Mercedes, who are taking their time but are on course to set their first lap times. Antonelli should pop himself up into the top 15, and that is it. It's only 15th for Antonelli. George Russell, meanwhile, comes around the final corner. The lights from the circuit illuminate off of the silver arrow. Better lap from the British driver. He puts himself up into 5th.
Yeah, that was disappointing in the end from Antonelli. It looked better than that. The timing sheets didn't reflect it, but from the on-boards, and maybe he's just not going quickly enough, but he looked under control, he looked quite smooth. So a bit of work to do, certainly on that side of the Mercedes garages. He's already been pushed down into that elimination zone in P16. Alonso has been doing quite well. A really good first sector. He started a lap earlier on that was very, very quick and then abandoned it. He's now continuing. He's got into the final sector. This is going to be a good lap from Alonso. Coming through the last part of the lap, he's gone very quickly in the first sector, a reasonable middle sector. He's coming through the last couple of corners now. We'll get a read on his actual lap time. Out of the final corner he goes, keeps it within track limits, flat out to the line, and Alonso pops himself up into P1. Look at that.
Pretty neat and tidy, Andrew, from Alonso.
He's quite handy, that guy, isn't he? I don't know, I've not heard much about him before, but I mean, I have to say, look, he's something of a specialist at Qatar. In 2021, he put the Alpine on the podium. I think, I mean, the list of Fernando Alonso's great races is long, but that was definitely right up there. And he's in an Aston Martin. How is he fastest?
It was a brilliant story, wasn't it? His comeback year with Alpine, putting it on the podium. By the way, we're only a minute and 13 left, and Antonelli is in the dropout zone in 16th, along with Gasly, Lawson. Hamilton is down in 19th at the moment, with Colapinto the only car behind him.
Hamilton really looks like he's struggling. It should be said Esteban Ocon won a race in that Alpine in 21, but that was a very strange event in Hungary where, if you remember, there was only one car on the grid for the start because it was a wet start and everything, and the order was all topsy-turvy, and Ocon drove very well to defend that lead from Sebastian Vettel, but all the front runners were sort of out of position in that race. The Qatar race that Alonso put it on the podium in was not that at all. It was a straight race with all the front runners at the front. Hamilton and Verstappen were first and second. I can't remember which way round. He was on the podium with them in the Alpine. And here he is again, fastest so far in the Aston Martin. Quite extraordinary.
To highlight that, you look at where the other Aston Martin is, right on the fringes. Lance Stroll down in 15th at the moment, but it could well be last lap over the line. Max Verstappen fastest of anybody in the first sector. Yuki Tsunoda fastest of anybody in the middle sector. Hamilton's going again. Hasn't had the strongest first sector. Better middle sector as Max Verstappen pops up to the top of the timings as the clock counts down to 0 here. Lawson gets himself out of the bottom 5 and moves himself up into 9th. What could Lewis Hamilton do? Currently down in 19th. It's only 15th. It's not safe yet. He's taken the checkered flag. He won't get another go. He's followed over the line by his teammate Charles Leclerc, who rockets up to 6th, make that 7th as Yuki Tsunoda flies through up into 5th, only a couple tenths off teammate Max Verstappen. Gasly crosses the line up into 18th, takes the checkered flag. Kimi Antonelli saves himself another SQ1 exit and puts Hamilton down and out. Antonelli up to 7th, Hamilton out in SQ1. It was last week he qualified last for the Grand Prix, and right now he is set to line up right at the back for the sprint race, the final sprint of the year. It goes from bad to worse for Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari, with only the 2 Alpines behind him, as Colapinto will come across to take the flag and stay 20th. Russell takes the flag up into 7th spots, and that will eliminate Lance Stroll as Alex Albon, right at the death, gets through and up into 14th. Out of SQ1 then goes Lance Stroll's Aston Martin, Liam Lawson's Racing Bull, the Ferrari of Lewis Hamilton, and the 2 Alpines, Pierre Gasly and Franco Colapinto.
He's unrecognisable at the moment, Lewis Hamilton, isn't he? He's 4/10 slower than Charles Leclerc. And, you know, he was saying yesterday in the press conference, I didn't expect this season to be easy. You know, it takes time to adapt to a new team. But this is Lewis Hamilton. You know, he's arguably the greatest Formula 1 driver of all time, or at least certainly his earlier career suggested that, all the results that he's achieved. And I'm finding it really hard to compute why he's not been able to adapt to this Ferrari to this extent.
It's quite sad to see this at the moment. And one thing I'd say we do know about Lewis Hamilton, we know how talented he is, we know how experienced he is, he's got a lot in his locker. We also know how he's affected emotionally by performance, by things going on around him. And when his confidence goes, which it clearly has done in recent times over the tail end of this year, it massively affects how he shows up and how he performs. I've seen it up close and personal. Here he is.
Man, the car won't go any quicker.
The car won't go any quicker, Lewis Hamilton says over the radio as he's wheeled back into the Ferrari garage.
Problem is it will. And it's gone 4/10 quicker in the hands of his teammate. He's only 13th, Charles Leclerc, but he's still 4/10 quicker than Hamilton.
Yeah, tough times.
Then we just saw a replay and it looked a bit messy. Not sure what lap it was for Lewis Hamilton, but he was kind of stuck behind the Red Bull. His teammate was in front of him as well. We've got an incident from Verstappen and Norris that's been noted by race control for impeding. We'll keep you updated on that if it gets elevated, but that is Lewis Hamilton out in SQ1 for the second time in the last 4 sprints. Stroll out in 16th, just ahead of the 7-time champion, and has never started in the top 10 in Qatar, either in the sprint or Grand Prix for Lance Stroll, so continues that record. Liam Lawson out in 17th, third SQ1 elimination in the 6 sprints we've had this season for the Kiwi, whilst he has to see his teammate Isaac Hadjar sail through up inside the top 6. Gasly and Colapinto 19th and 20th, so Alpine are the 2 slowest cars in a qualifying session once again. Max Verstappen topped the session ahead of Fernando Alonso, Oscar Piastri third, Nico Hülkenberg finished 4th up in the Sauber. Good lap time. I know it's only SQ1, but he's found some pace in there.
And which he's done a couple of times over the course of this season, hasn't he? So there are glimmers of hope for him and for that team. And who knows, we may find that can translate as the weekend goes on. Just the other point to make quickly, Stroll is all the way down there, at least in part, because he got his lap time deleted for track limits. So the one lap time he did put in that was reasonable was taken away from him.
So, Harry, on that thing about the impeding, the producer has just told me, Eagle-Eyed Joe, that there's 2 Verstappen-Norris impeding incidents, one which listed Verstappen as the first name and one which listed Norris as the first name, which suggests that there are 2 separate incidents in which each one has impeded the other.
Yeah, one at turn 1, one at turn 16.
Yeah. So that's the first and the final corner. So they have both been noted at the moment. So we'll keep an eye on if they get elevated to under investigation for you. But that is then for Lando Norris and Max Verstappen, title protagonists. A worry to have in the back of your mind as we enter for SQ2.
It also rather suggests, given that it's corner 16, which is the last corner, and corner 1, which is the first corner, that one happens straight after the other. So it looks like Norris may have impeded Verstappen at turn 16, which maybe that was Verstappen completing a lap. And then it looks like Verstappen's impeded Norris at turn 1, and maybe that was Verstappen getting Norris back for impeding in the corner before. I don't know that. Just speculation, but it could be. Yeah.
So we're just having a look at a rather forlorn Lewis Hamilton, helmet on, walking back with his performance engineer Angela following him, and we're going to see then the impeding incidents. This is Max Verstappen heading towards the final corner.
McLaren in my way.
Yeah, we saw that with Piastri. Norris opening a lap behind you.
So that was Jean-Pierre Lambiasian, the Max Verstappen's engineer, suggesting it was Piastri, but it was Lando Norris, who had a moment through the right-hander and then backed off massively and was trying to weave his own way.
Yeah, Verstappen just didn't get out my way. He just cost me my lap.
Every other lap he's just pulled over immediately after he completed his lap. That time he decided to stay out and screw you over.
Yeah, just obvious, mate.
Okay, so that was all very messy. A lot of cars going slowly and trying to find their way through. Both McLarens were involved in there. It was Piastri at 1.2. I mean, it was just messy in general. But so,
well, I'd say the first one, it looked like, because it's a very fast final corner, and I think as Verstappen was closing his lap, you'd really want to be as far wide as you could to maximise the corner, and there was the McLaren right out on the curbs, so I can sort of see why Verstappen is upset with that. I don't know if it was a kind of retaliation thing that happened next. Certainly McLaren seemed to think so, and that's one for the stewards to pick apart.
Well, the second incident, it looked like there was another car involved, even before Verstappen, even before Norris came across Verstappen.
Mercedes, I think, yeah.
So that was all messy. No further investigation for the turn 16 incident involving Norris, as it's suggested, and Verstappen reviewed, and no further investigation for that one. We'll see what turn 1 brings, but that certainly looked like it was just messy from not just the McLaren and the Red Bull there, but a couple of others involved too. SQ2 then underway with 9 minutes and 12 on the clock as Lando Norris is released into the pit lane, and the Papaya McLaren heads down towards the pit exit to join Verstappen, Hulkenberg, Russell, Tsunoda, Bortoletto, Leclerc and Ocon, who are already out on track. Just to reiterate, we have lost Stroll, Lawson, Hamilton and the 2 Alpines of Gasly and Colapinto. Good efforts last time out for Nico Hulkenberg and the Sauber. Hadjar has looked quick as well, the 2 Williams cars. So could we see actually a few of these midfield runners spoil the party this evening?
Well, as soon as you start to get big players drop out at any stage in qualifying, it obviously opens up opportunities, particularly for those midfield runners. And as you highlighted at the top of the show, that battle, particularly in the midfield in the Constructors' Championship, is really quite tight, especially around 6th place, and worth an awful lot of money. So opportunities like this, and it is just for the sprint, of course, to remind everybody at home, but these things all matter. The points will all start to add up. Even the small points can make a big difference.
Turn 1 incident involving cars. Verstappen and Norris reviewed no further, and that impeding will go no more. So both in the clear on that one, and we can get SQ2 underway without anything hanging over us. And Verstappen is already straight on a lap once again on the medium tyres, and everybody darting to get out of the way as he swings it in to the double right-hander of turns 4 and 5, and then immediately pulls the car over to the right-hand side to line it up for the long left-hander of turn 6, and he now heads towards the last part of the first sector through the medium speed right-hander of turn 7, as he then dances his way left, flicks his way right through 8 and 9 before braking for the left-hander of turn 10, which then bends even further left as it sets you up for the triple right-hander. 12, 13 and 14 come in a flash as we ride on board with the Red Bull man up through the gears, fastest of anybody through that first sector. Personal best from him through the middle sector it would be. It's his first proper flying lap as he only has one more corner to run. Let's see what the opening gambit is from the Dutchman as he puts his foot to the floor and powers over the line. It becomes a 1:21.295.
It was a very tidy lap from Verstappen. He looks very much under control. All the sort of moaning, complaining we heard coming out of across his radio from the practice sessions, I don't know whether they've made major changes between sessions ahead of this qualifying session, but actually looks very comfortable in the car. It's a reasonably fast time. We'll see what it compares to when we get the other major contenders coming across the line, but Verstappen looking good so far.
I'm about to say Charles Leclerc flying through the middle sector and struggling to keep control of his Ferrari through the final sector, fighting the steering wheel as the rear end wanted to step out on him. He managed to hold it and go second, splits the 2 Red Bulls as Tsunoda gets up into 3rd spot ahead of the Sauber of Nico Hulkenberg. We've got the 2 McLarens out on track. Oscar Piastri quicker through the middle sector, fastest of anybody right now. It'll be Lando Norris though who crosses the line first. Norris is just coming out of the final corner now. To the line for Norris, who leads the championship by 24 points. He goes over 3/10 clear at the top. What about Oscar Piastri though, the Australian who has fond memories of this track? Half a tenth of a second separating the 2 McLaren drivers. Piastri slower.
Yeah, nothing in that, and Russell's also going quite quickly. It was very, very close on a shot that I've just seen of Lando Norris coming very close to track limits, so I hope he didn't breach them, but it's one of those sort of VAR calls that I don't think with the naked eye you could tell it looked very close to track limits. Russell up into 3rd, just ahead of Verstappen, so the 2 McLarens, nothing between them. Then it's a 3/10 gap back to Russell and then Verstappen, so it's tight at the top.
Hadjar fastest of anybody through the middle sector. Another tidy lap time, but ends up 4/10 adrift, but it's enough for 5th spot at the moment for the Frenchman, who has said he knows he'll be on the grid next year. It's just a matter of where. Will it be at the same team, Racing Bulls, or will he get the promotion to Red Bull alongside Max Verstappen? Talk of Verstappen, reports the car is bouncing like crazy, followed by a few expletives. So running low, that car. We've seen sparks flying. Is he getting that porpoising feel?
Yeah, it's a sort of bumpy circuit anyway, but also you really need to use the curbs here. I was getting a replay of Leclerc fighting the car through the final corner. I mean, it's a decent lap really, but there was a little bit more time in it. But that just shows how he's struggling to get a lap time out of it. It's not an easy car to drive, that Ferrari. Yeah, the curbs here really quite aggressive. They can be quite damaging, both to the tyres, as we've already discussed, but also the underside of the cars as well. But you have to use them to get the lap time. So it's not like a case of just stay off them and protect everything. You've really got to push your car right out to the limits of this racetrack to get the maximum lap time, and that's where that potential damage can occur. So yeah, not an easy one on cars or drivers or teams, this track.
Nobody on anything particularly outstanding at the moment. Kimi Antonelli still needs to set his first lap time. He's just ramping things up through the middle sector at the moment in that elimination zone. Down from 11th is Ocon, Albon, Bortoleto, Alonso, and then comes Antonelli. I'd say I don't think it's the best first sector, but it's going to be his first proper flying lap for Kimi Antonelli, who just about skated through into SQ2. He does love a flirt with an SQ1 knockout, does Antonelli, and he's going to have one final corner to run through the right-hander of turn 16 with just over 3 minutes remaining. The 19-year-old from Italy will cross the line and put that Mercedes up into 7th, a 1:21.442. His teammate, a couple of tenths further up the road, enough for 3rd.
Did Antonelli cross track limits? Oh, yes, he did. As we just see a replay of him going very, very wide. So that was on a previous lap, of course, which, as the rules suggest, that lap time has been deleted. Not that he particularly wanted to hang on to that one.
Yes, the 1:50 lap time when we're in the 1:20s deleted for Antonelli. But he got one in the end. I think there's more to come, though, for Antonelli. The first sector could be improved upon, but it's enough at the moment for 7th. It's Norris, Piastri, Russell, the top 3. Verstappen, Hadjar, the top 5, with Sainz in 6th ahead of Antonelli. Then it's Leclerc, Tsunoda and Hülkenberg, the top 10. The 2 Hasses of Behrman and Ocon, the first in that elimination zone, 11th and 12th. Albon down in 13th ahead of Bortoleto. Fernando Alonso is down in 15th. Now, did Alonso have a lap time deleted, or he must have done?
No, he just hasn't set a time. He's done 3 or 4 laps, all in the same sort of range of lap time. I don't know, but he's 8 seconds off the pace that he set in the first session, so something weird's going on. But I guess he's got one last chance coming up now.
I think he's just crossed the line now and is heading down towards turn 1. It's got Yuki Tsunoda in front of him, who's got Charles Leclerc in front of him, but might have spaced that out just enough for Fernando Alonso, who will get one chance over the line to see where he can put the sole remaining Aston Martin, who welcome Adrian Newey as their team principal in 2026. The era of the engineer and team principal very much coming to fruition right now. And the other Red Bull, Max Verstappen, puts himself up into 3rd. He's behind the 2 McLarens, though, as Hülkenberg gets shuffled down into 10th spot. Alex Albon looking to improve in his Williams as he starts his final flying lap. His teammate Sainz up in 6th right now.
And Alonso's first sector was just 1/10 off George Russell's, which is the fastest at the moment in S1.
Alonso is making his way towards the middle sector now through the left-hander of turn 10, bending round through 11 to set himself up for the triple right-hander of 12, 13 and 14, which he makes his way through now. Tsunoda's on another lap as well, has been complaining of understeer as Yuki Tsunoda. He's in 9th right now. It could really do with a top 10 start in the sprint. Wants to support Max Verstappen's title bid where he can. Charles Leclerc will cross the line with less than 30 seconds to go and puts the sole remaining Ferrari up into 4th. 4th, make that 5th as Tsunoda gets himself up into 4th. Alonso crosses the line and puts the Aston Martin into 7th. That shuffles Hülkenberg, Behrman, Ocon, Albon and Bortoleto down. Alex Albon's coming into the final sector now. Could really do with joining his teammate up inside the top 10. Carlos Sainz is right on the periphery, but looking to improve is Carlos Sainz. Someone's had a trip through the gravel through the final corner and left a plume of smoke. It doesn't put Carlos Sainz off. He puts the Williams into 5th. Hadjar, meanwhile, fastest of anybody in the middle sector. The clock is counted down to 0. Norris fastest ahead of Piastri. Albon does improve, makes it 2 Williams inside the top 10. Pressure now on Kimi Antonelli. The 2 Saubers won't get through. Neither will Esteban Ocon. Hadjar can't improve. Can Antonelli find something in this final sector? He's going to come towards the final corner now, and across the line is his teammate George Russell. Antonelli rounds the final corner now. The next Mercedes across the line. Will he make it through? He won't. It's not enough for Antonelli, who gets knocked out in SQ2. No, he doesn't, because Hadjar gets a lap time deleted, and right at the close of SQ2, Antonelli is spared and makes his way through into the top 10 at the expense of Isaac Hadjar in 11th. Behrman 12th. The 2 Saubers, Bortoleto ahead of Hülkenberg, with Esteban Ocon 15th.
Wow, that was tight, wasn't it? Right at the top, nothing separating the top 3, and they are the World Championship contenders, both McLarens and, of course, Max Verstappen. A replay of Lando Norris having an off during that session, crashing across the gravel traps. Both McLarens actually aborted their final run because they were very much safe, didn't need to push anything, take any risks. They were both safe at the top, so they aborted. Verstappen less than a 10th behind the 2 McLarens, so it's really game on between any of those 3 cars. I have to say, I think Tsunoda's done a fantastic job to get his car up within a couple of tenths of the leaders. Good job from him.
Yeah, 3 cars into 10-1. Yep, crazy.
That's what Fernando Alonso had to report, that turn 1 antics with a lot of traffic. The good news is he's made it through, and there'll be a lot fewer cars out on track, and this is the sound of Tsunoda going wheel to wheel with Fernando Alonso on track during that sprint qualifying, and managing to get a nice overtake on him, but I don't think that will please Fernando Alonso very much.
I think what happened was he saw it was Tsunoda who held up Alonso in the first place, and I think that replay that we've just been watching was Alonso saying, I'm going to pay you back for that one, mate, and holding him up for about 3 or 4 corners as he was preparing a lap by the looks of it. So we've not seen anything for impeding, have we?
No, we have not. Just Hadjar's lap that was deleted for track limits right at the very end, and I would love to hear his team radio.
You're safe.
That was harsh on
Sorry, no, we are P11. Sorry, we are P11.
Knew that was coming. Right as he took the checker flag, only just made it through, and that has allowed Kimi Antonelli through. So, to confirm, Hadjar then, 2nd SQ2 elimination in the last 3 races for the Frenchman, just ahead of Ollie Behrman. Gabriel Bortoleto out-qualifies for the sprint Nico Hülkenberg, who I think will be frustrated. He was the man who left that plume of dust from the gravel on the exit of the final corner. That cost him on his final lap, 14th. Ahead of Esteban Ocon, who has been struggling apparently with a feeling problem on the brakes throughout the majority of this season, as Haas try and help him rectify that. So is that something that's rearing its head again in this sprint qualifying session? But both Haas cars out in SQ2.
I mean, basically, Ollie Behrman's had an incredibly impressive rookie season, and he's putting Esteban Ocon in the shade at the moment. Particularly, he's got better and better as the season's gone on, Behrman, and he's definitely marking himself out as one for the future. And quite often when Esteban Ocon gets beaten by his teammates, he has a reason for why that's happening that sounds a bit like an excuse. He's got a bit of a reputation for it. That's not to say he isn't feeling something in the brakes that he's not happy with, but it's just a pattern that has happened through his career is all.
We'll leave that there. We'll catch up with Ollie Behrman in Abu Dhabi, by the way. If you've been listening to the Checker Flag throughout the year, you would have heard our catch-ups as we monitor Behrman's rookie season. He's scored points in Grand Prix 9 times. He's on a run, actually, of 5 consecutive top 10 finishes. And you'd have to think back too far to Australia, round 1. It was an absolute well, disaster really for him. Big crashes, looked all out of his depth, but now really has grown into a Formula One driver by the close of this season.
It really has, and it doesn't take too much imagination to fast forward a little bit and look at Lewis Hamilton clearly coming to the end of his career. He's got at least another year on his contract at Ferrari, but beyond that, who knows? He's in a car with a Ferrari engine, part of that Ferrari driver program. It's very easy to see how that line joins up and he becomes the next Ferrari driver. So he's putting himself in a very strong position for that to happen. It's be a great career trajectory for him, and I think he's done himself a lot of good favours this year.
Yeah, basically, when you come into a team as Ollie Behrman's done this year as a rookie, and you've got a sort of relatively established driver as your teammate, your job is to beat the teammates, and he's definitely doing that at the moment. And just a little Esteban Ocon anecdote, just to give a bit of evidence to what I was talking about. When Alonso beat him by 1.7 seconds in qualifying in the wet in Canada, it was 5 races before Ocon stopped trying to convince the team that there was something wrong with his car, and they tried to convince him, no, Esteban, that was just Fernando. That's just the way it is sometimes.
That's got to hurt, hasn't it? That has got to hurt. But either way, both Haas cars out in that one, along with Hadjar, who, as you heard, was very frustrated there. And the two Saubers, Bortoleto and Hulkenberg. Gabriel Bortoleto actually searching for a stronger weekend. Last couple of races, he's had, 2 retirements in the form of big crashes as well. For Sauber, this home race was pretty much a write-off, and Bortoleto, with that very late braking manoeuvre down into turn 1 of the Grand Prix in Las Vegas, earned himself a 5-place grid penalty, which will be applied for the Grand Prix. He's also got 2 penalty points as well. So having been one of only a few drivers to keep a clean sheet, he now adds 2 to his tally. The only drivers yet to score a penalty point: his teammate Hulkenberg, Hadjar, Ocon, and Fernando Alonso. All a clean sheet so far when it comes to penalty points, all being very good out there.
There's still 2 races to go.
Jinxed it now. Right, they're all queuing up at the end of the pit lane for the green light to come on at the end, which should come on in just a matter of seconds for this final part then of sprint qualifying ahead of the 6th and final sprint of the season here in Qatar. The first night race, the first race in the Middle East to host a sprint race, has done the last couple of years. It's Max Verstappen who holds the records when it comes to sprints. He's scored the most points from sprints this year, 27 scored. Verstappen, Sainz, Hamilton, the only drivers to score podium and points in every sprint season since it came into action. And Max Verstappen with the record sprint pole number 10. Looking for an 11th sprint pole. In fact, he has more sprint wins than every other driver combined. You think of Max Verstappen and, well, you can be pretty sure that a sprint victory is not too far away.
Yeah, well, here we go. This is what's going to help whoever it is get on pole to achieve that result of winning a sprint tomorrow. It's the soft tyres, of course, now mandated on every single car. The red walled Pirellis as they roll out the pit lane. The 2 McLarens rolling out the garages along the pit wall, the pit lane to get onto the racetrack. Max Verstappen first out again. He's very keen this weekend to get out onto that racetrack and get a bit of clean space. But Verstappen, Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, so far, all the way through this session, absolutely nothing between them.
Sticking on the soft tyre now, as you say, Kimi Antonelli rounding the final corner and gearing up for a lap. I think Mercedes has been fairly decent in how they're warming up these tyres. He's going to head down to turn 1 now. The rear wing opens, the DRS, the drag reduction system, which gives you about nearly 40 thousandths of a second gain in a straight line before you slam on the brakes. Not the most powerful here as the turn 1 right-hander comes at you pretty quickly before you're then really trying to find a rhythm. It's all about the flow here in Qatar because one corner immediately feeds into the other. It's very much high speed, medium speed flicks that can really make or break a lap.
Yeah, it's one of those tracks that when you hook it all up, it feels amazing from a driving perspective. But for exactly that reason, they just flow so nicely. But consequently, you get one wrong, it can affect the next 2 or 3 corners. Your lap's ruined very quickly and it becomes a nightmare. So it's a difficult track, not the easiest challenge on the Grand Prix circuit around the calendar that we travel around the world over the course of the year, but a good one from our point of view to watch.
Max Verstappen's just had a pretty poor turn 4 and 5, ran completely off the track and has thrown away his first flying lap attempt. So Verstappen will have to go again, having pushed through the first sector, backs off and tries to find a little bit more space. Meanwhile, Antonelli, Russell, Tsunoda all flying out there. Kimi Antonelli's going to be the first to come across the line in his Mercedes and puts a lap time of 1:29.03 together. What does teammate Russell do as he crosses the line? He pips him by a few tenths of a second. George Russell to the top, a 1:25.28 to Mercedes with the first 2 laps on the board.
Yeah, Antonelli's been clearly struggling in relation to his teammates so far this weekend. So the happy of the 2 is certainly George.
Car, man, this is prancing like an idiot.
Max Verstappen then really not happy with the bouncing on board his Red Bull. They not quite got the setup right. When it comes to his machinery underneath him, he can usually get the maximum out of whatever he is provided, but right now had to back out of that last lap. We'll see what the 2 McLarens have got with just over 4 minutes of this final part of sprint qualifying. Charles Leclerc is half salvaging what could have been a pretty miserable day for Ferrari. He's just popped up into second, make that third as Piastri comes across the line and by over 2.5 tenths of a second over George Russell, puts himself in provisional pole for the sprint. And fastest in the middle and final sectors. Lando Norris is fastest in the first sector, but can he string it all together in this final sector? The 2 McLarens have been pretty close in, well, only 1 practice session and the 2 sprint quali sections we've seen so far, and once again it's around about 0.5 tenth of a second, just under that this time, that splits the 2 McLarens. This time Piastri ahead of Norris.
I mean, this is good for Piastri in terms of, in recent rounds, he's just been nowhere near, relatively speaking, nowhere near his teammate. It's always been Lando Norris that's dominated pretty much every session. What we're seeing at least is Oscar Piastri being right back on par with his teammate around this circuit. It is a track that he likes, that he's gone well at in the past, so that'll build a little bit of confidence, which is exactly what he's been lacking. And for Verstappen, who we keep hearing complaining so vociferously on the radio, he's still not very far away from those 2 McLaren, so he may not be entirely happy and entirely comfortable with his car, but there's still a lap time to be found in there.
First gaggle of lap time set then, all bar Max Verstappen, and Yuki Tsunoda had a pretty terrible lap as well. Verstappen picking up lots of gravel as well, and he bounced over the strip on the exit of turns 4 and 5. No time on the board for Max Verstappen with 2.5 minutes on the clock.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's damaged the floor of that car. That could really scupper Max Verstappen's chances of a decent qualifying performance here for the sprint. He's still going around. He started another lap now, but it's not quick at the moment. It might not be on a flying lap right now. Here's his radio.
Yeah, this,
you cannot give up track position, okay?
I got it. Let me please. And forward, I started understeering a lot, but I'm busy.
So Max Verstappen is trying to give some feedback, and they're having a bit of friction between him and Jean-Pierre Lambiase, but they do pride themselves on their straight-talking nature over the radio.
Yeah, so they're all in sync at the moment, the drivers. They're all on their final warm-up laps for their final qualifying attempt. We'll have to see what Verstappen can manage after that escapade over the gravel and his unhappiness with the car. By the way, bouncing that he's talking about, that could be the same thing that happened to McLaren in Las Vegas that got them disqualified. It might not be, because there's 2 different kinds of bouncing, and sometimes the words are used interchangeably. It doesn't always mean porpoising. It can just mean reacting over the bumps, but not good signs for Verstappen so far, as everyone's winding up now to start these final flying laps, Harry.
Yeah, and Red Bull, both drivers in need of decent laps. They are currently 9th and 10th. It's McLaren 1 and 2, Russell 3rd, Leclerc 4th, Albon 5th ahead of his teammate Sainz. Williams enjoying a strong showing so far in Qatar. Alonso's up in 7th, Antonelli is in 8th, Tsunoda and Verstappen then will start their final flyers. Verstappen ahead of Tsunoda as he races down at speeds of over 320 kilometres an hour before he touches the brakes into the right-hander, which does invite a late lunge when it comes to racing, not so much in qualifying trim. Before you know it, he's flicking through the left-hander of turn 2, building up through the right of 3, the double right-hander on 4 and 5 beckons. That's where he went off on his first flying lap. Tidier this time from Max Verstappen, but is he keeping a bit of margin there?
He's a couple of tenths off, or just over a tenth off in that first sector, so it's not looking like that great a lap for Verstappen.
Is this challenge for sprint pole falling away? 8 points up for grabs in the sprint race, and Lando Norris, well, may have one hand on the trophy for the Formula 1 World Drivers' Championship, but he cannot clinch it in tomorrow's sprint race. If he does clinch it, it'll be in the Grand Prix on Sunday, only if he outscores Verstappen and Piastri by 2 points.
This is not going to be good enough for Verstappen. In fact, Tsunoda going more quickly than his teammate. We don't say that very often. So Verstappen with a little bit of a scrappy lap. He's coming out the final corner now. He'll head towards the line. Where's it going to put him? Only up into P4, nearly 3 tenths off the leaders. Those his championship rivals, Oscar Piastri in the McLaren, so not good enough.
Oh, Tsunoda gets himself up into 3rd. Good showing from Tsunoda, but is it too little too late? Antonelli can't challenge either. He's only 6th. His teammate is absolutely flying. Fernando Alonso up into 3rd, but can anybody challenge the McLarens? Can Lando Norris challenge his teammate Oscar Piastri? Russell fastest through the first sector. Piastri fastest through the middle sector. Leclerc stays down in 9th. Russell will come to the line and takes provisional sprint pole by over 1.5 tenths of a second, but can he hold it? Piastri says no. Piastri takes provisional sprint pole. Can Lando Norris do anything? No, he can't. Russell splits the 2 McLarens. It's Piastri, 2nd in the Drivers' Championship, but on pole for the final sprint of the season. Lando Norris 3rd, with Max Verstappen down in 6th.
Wow, did not quite see that coming. We just got a shot of that McLaren garage, particularly on Lando Norris' side. They look shocked. They look absolutely dumbfounded. They did not see that coming at all. Not only from teammate Oscar Piastri, but where did that come from George Russell? What a lap.
Incredible. George Russell getting in and amongst it. We were talking about, could Mercedes throw a spanner into this title fight? Well, they've thrown the first one. Was there a mistake from Lando Norris on his final flyer? We are about to find out. He ran wide in the final corner.
Yeah, so lap time deleted, that's why. Because actually the lap was looking really strong. The lap was looking like it was going to be good enough for pole all the way through the first sector and the second sector. Ran way wide, right over the curb and into the gravel trap, and that's what ruined it. Lap time taken away, but it wouldn't have been quick enough anyway with that excursion. So a mistake from the McLaren driver.
That's all it takes. I wonder if he even got a bit distracted because it was Albon in front of him who also ran wide and just kicked up a bit of dust as well. But that is the kind of thing we are looking out for in this close to the championship.
P1.
Yeah, that was turn pole was a little bit lively.
Yeah,
but
you hung on to it though.
Nice. Pass it on. Nice to be back. Thanks everybody.
Welcome back, Oscar Piastri. Where have you been? Provisional, make that pole for this sprint race, back-to-back sprint poles. 3 sprint poles, actually, isn't it, for Oscar Piastri in Qatar? Something about this track in Qatar and Oscar Piastri going hand in hand as he pulls up into Parc Fermé and doing exactly what he needs to do this weekend.
It's a result that's more important than just starting the sprint from pole position. It's a result that brings a little bit of confidence back. You know, I'm sure within his own mind he would have always believed he can do this, but you start to have these thoughts that creep in that just knock your confidence. And when it happens for as long as it has done with Oscar Piastri, you need a good result like this, and it can really change everything. We just of course hope it's not too little too late for him.
A 4th career sprint pole for Oscar Piastri. Gets out of the car, waves to the fans, and the team and heads over to be Wade, George Russell and Lando Norris already there, giving each other a quick handshake. As Lando Norris then starts third. Behind him, Fernando Alonso. Tsunoda with probably his best showing of the year in fifth. Verstappen, sixth. Antonelli only seventh, ahead of Carlos Sainz. Charles Leclerc could only manage ninth. And Alex Albon rounds out the top 10. So both Williams inside the top 10 then. And best of the midfield bunch. Actually, no, Fernando Alonso best of the midfield bunch, up in fourth. That's pretty spectacular for Fernando Alonso, who, much like Piastri, does have a soft spot for this Losail International Circuit. The CEO of McLaren, Zak Brown, heads over to Oscar Piastri, gives him a nice embrace, pat on the back, smiles all round. Of course, the job's not done yet, but it's a good start.
It's a really good start, and look, we always say it, but starting from pole position doesn't just put you at the front, which is a great place to be. It puts you a little bit out of trouble, out of harm's way. And when this championship is so delicately poised, when you're Lando Norris, particularly when you're Max Verstappen down in sixth, you're right in the middle of a whole gaggle of cars going into turn one, which is the last place you want to be. If Oscar can get a good run off the start line, he'll be in a good shape. And
he's only initially got to worry about, well, George Russell, who will be on his inside. At least it's not his teammate, who we've seen a few ding-dongs going down into tunnel. Remember the Mercedes drivers from last year, both taking each other out. How quickly it can happen. But we can hear from our sprint pole sitter. He's talking to Jamie Chadwick down in Park Fermé.
Oscar, what a session, sprint pole position and a new track record. Talk us through it.
Yeah, it's been a good day, which is nice for a change. It's been just a day where things have clicked from the start, and I think the sprint quality session went really well. Yeah, pretty big moment on my lap, but was just enough in the end. So thanks to the team, great car, and we've looked really good this weekend so far. So I'm pretty happy with that.
You say it's clicked. You seem to have a lot of confidence at this track. You've gone well here before, but you say there's a little mistake maybe on that lap. How much was in it? Do you think there's an optimal lap, or looking at tomorrow, what do you think?
I think if you hook it up, there's a 19 in there. So we'll see what we can do. But at the moment, I'm just happy with the result. Obviously a few things to try and tidy up, but it's nice to be able to say that when you're starting on pole. So looking forward to tomorrow. Obviously, it's only sprint pole and for a few points, but I'll take whatever I can get.
And looking forward to tomorrow, obviously expectations for the race, but then qualifying as well. If you think there's a bit more in it, is it the same again?
Difficult to know. I mean, a sprint weekend's always really tough to know if you're fully on top of things from when you roll onto the track. But no, I think the cars felt really good all day. We made some good adjustments into qualifying, which was nice, and I think the pace was there all day. So hopefully we can keep that running.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
A rather happy Oscar Piastri then, who has taken all three sprint poles in Qatar and will have the best view in the house for the first points that will become available this weekend. George Russell will line up alongside him. Lando Norris in third. Max Verstappen with a bit of work to do then down in sixth. We're going to be analysing all of this and previewing the weekend proper on our Checkered Flag podcast, which will be available soon on BBC Sounds. We're also going to be live on 5 Live tonight at 9 o'clock this evening. You can join us to look back at this sprint qualifying and indeed preview the weekend. Thank you to Andrew Benson. Thank you to Mark Priestley. Join us for the sprint race tomorrow. It's on 5 Sports Extra. We're going to be on 5 Sports Extra for absolutely everything this weekend, by the way, but the sprint will be on air from about 1:45 in the afternoon ahead of a lights out for 2 o'clock. Hope you can join us then. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.